The extreme southern tip of Texas, where the Rio Grande flows into the Gulf of Mexico, is one of the most biologically diverse regions in the United States. This unique region is a blend of subtropical, temperate, coastal, and arid habitats, encompassing 11 different biological communities, from Chihuahuan thorn forests to riparian river woodlands. The state's four southernmost counties, Cameron, Hidalgo, Willacy, and Starr, comprise what is known as the Rio Grande Valley. Along with their bordering counties, this swath of deep South Texas is home to a plethora of plants and animals. This remarkable corner of the world boasts an astonishing 1,200 types of plants, 700 plus vertebrate creatures, more than 525 species of birds, and some 330 kinds of butterflies and counting. Tragically, more than 97% of the native habitat in the Rio Grande Valley has been cleared for agricultural and urban development. This has left several plant species, such as Walker's manioc and star cactus, on the federally endangered species list. Widespread habitat destruction has relegated native wildlife to remnant tracts surrounded by development and left isolated islands of habitat terrestrial creatures like the Texas tortoise cannot safely access. Habitat destruction has severely reduced wildlands required by both resident and migratory species of birds and insects, such as the endangered Aplomado falcon, tropical Altamira oriole, and migratory monarch butterflies. This isolation can also compromise the genetic integrity of many species, including the endangered ocelot. Only 80 of these rare cats are estimated to exist in the United States, and they cling to a precarious existence in the remnants of thorny chaparral on refuge property and adjoining ranch lands. Ocelots resemble small jaguars, weighing some 15 to 30 pounds, with golden brown fur and long, elegant tails. They are adorned with an array of black spots and stripes, creating an ocellated pattern. These eye-like markings give the cat its name and help camouflage it in its native habitat of almost impenetrable brush. Biologists on United States Fish and Wildlife Refuge property and neighboring ranch lands monitor the rare cats by capturing their images on camera, live trapping, and GPS collaring them to track their movements. The historic range of the ocelot in the United States once included most of Texas, portions of Arizona, Arkansas, and Louisiana. But habitat loss has left the cats with very little of the dense cover they require. The only breeding population of wild ocelots remaining in the country is in southernmost Texas. Since its inception nearly 40 years ago, the Lower Rio Grande Valley National Wildlife Refuge has striven to protect nearly 100,000 acres of vanishing native habitat, with particular focus on creating a wildlife corridor along the river. This corridor benefits a variety of native species and is essential to the future of the ocelot in the United States. Brian Whitten is the manager of the Lower Rio Grande Valley National Wildlife Refuge.
We were approved in the late 70s when the Lower Rio Grande Valley National Wildlife Refuge was established for 132,500 acres, and we're right at about 98,000 acres now. So we've made a lot of progress, but there's still about 30,000 acres that we need to kind of connect the string of pearls, if you will, along the river.
The anchor of the wildlife corridor is Santa Ana National Wildlife Refuge, nestled along the banks of the Rio Grande in the Mid-Valley. This 2,088-acre refuge is often called the jewel of the refuge system, as it is one of the last remaining old-growth forests in the area. Isela Chapa, South Texas Refuge Complex Urban Refuge Manager, is based at Santa Ana and appreciates the uniqueness of the refuge.
Santa Ana was the first refuge that was established down here in South Texas. It was established in 1943. And in a sense, it is the anchor of the wildlife corridor because it was the initial place that was set aside to benefit wildlife. I think it is estimated that 99% of the riparian habitat in our region has been destroyed or altered, changed, and so Santa Ana really protects part of the remaining 1%. To look at something so precious and so unique in the context of everything that surrounds it, in my perspective, that makes it a jewel.
While Santa Ana is surely a jewel of rare riparian river woodlands, and the 125 other separate properties managed by U.S. Fish and Wildlife create a string of pearls that need to be connected in order to create a viable wildlife corridor whereby creatures can safely travel from track to track. However, along the 275 river miles in the region, there are several barriers thwarting the flow of wildlife, from a dozen international bridges to 70 miles of border fencing. Joining Santa Ana National Wildlife Refuge in the Lower Rio Grande Valley National Wildlife Refuge Complex is Laguna Atascosa National Wildlife Refuge. The refuge encompasses approximately 100,000 acres at the extreme eastern edge of the valley, bordered by the Rio Grande to the south and the lower Laguna Madre and Gulf of Mexico to the east. Laguna's core lands are 45,000 acres along the lower Laguna Madre, while property north of the town of South Padre Island covers 25,000 acres, and the Bahia Grande tract north of the port of Brownsville consists of 22,000 acres. Additional lands are being acquired to create a coastal corridor linking the main refuge with Bahia Grande and ultimately the river corridor. These three refuges, Santa Ana, Lower Rio Grande Valley, and Laguna Atascosa, are all working in concert to link their separate islands of habitat to one another and to state and privately owned conservation tracts. Boyd Blihovde, manager of Laguna Atascosa National Wildlife Refuge, shares the concerns of many regarding the critical need for wildlife to have safe passage through a protected corridor of native habitat.
What we're trying to do is connect up big pieces of property like Laguna Atascosa, Bahia Grande, and others to the river corridor. Here at Laguna, we're really close to connecting to that corridor, which is down in the Boca Chica area.
The big blocks of habitat like you got here at Santa Ana or Laguna Atascosa, those are important for the large majority of the native species, but some animals are nomadic and they travel long distances, and so you need to be able to have some kind of native vegetation that they can hide within as they move about in between those bigger core areas.
If we don't preserve that corridor along the river, we'll have lost any connection with species to Mexico, which, you know, many of the species we have here in South Texas don't understand political boundaries. They don't understand walls and fences.
The 70 miles of border fence or wall currently installed in the Rio Grande Valley is set to expand by another 33 miles as early as this year. The fence is scattered across 18 individual sections. In some areas, the 18-foot-tall steel beams stretch across the levee top, while in other areas it is combined with a concrete wall. While the wall does not pose a significant threat to most birds, it does prevent terrestrial wildlife like endangered ocelots from crossing.
If we're going to be able to save that species from local extinction here in the United States, it's only going to be as if there's an ability for the other ocelots that live in South Texas, one here, one there, to be able to travel safely up and down the river and eventually up through the Bahia Grande and link up with those cats that are residents to Laguna. We need the genetic exchange so that the population remains strong.
In order to connect that string of pearls along the river, reforestation efforts are an essential part of the plan to create a viable wildlife corridor. Starting in 1984, to address the destruction of 97% of the Rio Grande Valley's native habitat due to agricultural and urban development, the United States Fish and Wildlife Service has reforested more than 13,000 acres with approximately 6.5 million seedlings. Kim Wall is an ecologist with the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, and she directs this very successful reforestation program.
We are really focusing on habitat restoration and recreating this habitat that had existed on these lands prior to being cleared. Really, very specifically, what we've been focusing on is building out from existing habitat and connecting two blocks of habitat.
A recent reforestation project near Bayview on 55 acres linked up two separate forest tracts with approximately 50,000 plants. White tubes protect the seedlings and will greatly enhance survival.
We're seeing that we can reach success rates of 90 to 95% within a planting site by using those. This is not our end point either. This is getting these seedlings into the ground. You know, the end point is going to be decades down the road when the wildlife can fully utilize this site. But what's actually most pleasing is to come out a year later, 2 years later, and see these plants flowering, to see them producing fruit, to see the wildlife that are already using it.
On another site north of Raymondville on Frank Uturia's ranch, where the United States Fish and Wildlife Service has a 10,000-acre conservation easement, extensive reforestation utilizing seedlings protected by tubes that will be later removed is proving equally successful.
I think here at Laguna, I guess we're kind of the gateway to the ranch country as well. And so you have big ranches to the north of Laguna that are also important. And certainly the corridor on our southern border has been a focus, but we're also working on corridor creation to the north of Laguna, going towards the Uturia Ranch, and to the north of that. They're all corridors that are important to the ocelot because we really have to have safe passage for that species, or if they don't link up to other populations, they're not going to be able to survive here forever.
While preserving native habitat is important to wildlife, such as the endangered ocelot, and safeguards our natural heritage, there is an added benefit, as a recent study by Texas A&M University revealed that ecotourism, bird watching in particular, has an astounding $463 million annual impact on the local economy. The tens of thousands of people that travel to the Rio Grande Valley to enjoy the remarkable wildlife are vital to the area economy. The Rio Grande Valley is one of the fastest growing regions in the United States, and the area's wildlife refuges are surrounded by encroaching development, from wind turbine industrial complexes, expanding roadways, and many other dangers. In order to save the vanishing habitat and natural heritage of this unique region, it will take a concerted effort on behalf of the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, state agencies, nonprofit organizations, private landowners, and private citizens. Together, we can create a wildlife corridor which will ensure future generations the extraordinary benefits of their natural heritage.